So a few years ago, I was paying $1,200 a month for a place that, well, it wasn't great. The apartment was old, it was cramped, and every time I ran the microwave and the oven at the same time, the power would just go out. I knew that there had to be a better way, and that's when I decided to take the plunge. I was going to buy a house, but here's the twist. I wasn't making six figures, I didn't have a massive inheritance, and I wasn't some real estate expert. I was earning just $50,000 a year, and I had no idea what I was getting myself into. But fast forward to today, and I'm sitting in the duplex that I own. The rent from one unit nearly covers my mortgage, and I'm living almost for free. Now let me break down exactly how I went from overpaying for a rundown apartment to owning my own place. And maybe along the way, you'll see how you can do it too. Now, here's where it all starts, saving. I'm not gonna lie to you, it wasn't easy. My take-home pay was around $3,200 a month, which meant I had to be really intentional with my money. So I moved in with my girlfriend and her mom, and suddenly my rent dropped to just $400 a month. Now, I know many people out there don't have the opportunity to move back home, but if you're young and you can sacrifice a year or two of what some might call some uncomfortable living, it can set you up for future success. And in my case, it was a dream scenario, and I realized how lucky I was where we had our own bedroom, our own bathroom and kitchen. We basically had an in-law suite. But just doing that, it wasn't going to be enough. You see, I had to cut back on everything. I sold stuff that I needed to, and chances are, if you're anything like me, you've got some old electronics around collecting dust, and it's got some value. This netted me somewhere between $3,000 and $4,000 at the time, which would have literally been an extra month of work and 2 months of savings. So next, I reduced how much I was investing, just putting into my 401k to get the 2% company match, and every extra dollar went into my savings account. My budget looked something like this. Rent and utilities was $400, cell phone was $15 thanks to Mint Mobile, groceries and gas around $300, and savings for a down payment was over $2,400 a month. With that kind of savings rate, I was able to save up $20,000 in around 8 months. It's not glamorous, but it works. And believe it or not, this money alone would have been enough to get myself into a property, and I'll explain how just a little bit later. But here's the thing. I knew that I could save more. I knew I could save faster if I just had more income. And that's when I decided to go all in on my side hustle. I spent every waking moment that wasn't allocated to my job on my YouTube channel. No more video games, no more movies, just pure hustle. And it worked because I loved doing that. There's something about putting out work in this world that's impacting those around me that is truly inspiring. And it took time, effort, and consistency, but eventually the channel started to grow, and so did the revenue. That extra money sped up the process, and I was no longer just relying on my salary. I had another source of income that made saving feel a lot more possible. Now, when it came to selecting the kind of property that I was going to buy, I didn't just want a house. I wanted an investment, and that's why I chose a duplex. You see, by living in one unit and renting out the other, I could use the rental income to cover most of my mortgage. And that's called house hacking. And it's honestly one of the smartest decisions that I've ever made. I'm building equity, I'm getting my living expenses covered, and setting myself up in the future, all with one property. And there are drawbacks to being a landlord, don't get me wrong, but for the most part, it's a really fulfilling journey. I try to strive to provide my tenants with the best possible housing experience, especially because I'm living on the premises as well. Now, with any issue that comes up, I try to address it immediately, and luckily that rarely has happened with this property, so I gotta knock on wood for that one. But here's where things got really hard for me. You see, I made about 30 offers on different homes, and every single one got rejected. At the time, everybody was throwing cash offers that were way above the asking price, like hundreds of thousands of dollars more, and I couldn't compete with that. So eventually I shifted my focus to distressed properties, and that's how I found my duplex, priced at $342,000. Looking back, there were other properties around the same price that probably would have required less work, but the truth is I didn't know what to look for, and the inspection process didn't help as much as I thought it would. If I could go back, I'd hire a better inspector and be more picky with the property, but that's just part of the learning process. Turns out, I quickly learned why so many people passed up on this property, and I'll explain why after we talk about the financing for this. So I ended up using something called an FHA loan, and that only requires about 3.5% down. And for the duplex, that meant that I needed about $12,000. With closing costs, fees, and everything else, I ended up spending around $20,000 total. And if you remember from before, I had saved up $20,000 in just 8 months. So I had enough to buy the property with plenty left over to account for any work that needed to go into the property. So I thought. My mortgage comes out to $2,200 a month, but because I've been renting out the other units, it really takes that burden off my plate. So yeah, like I said, basically living for free and building equity in this property. Super cool. It has streamlined my savings for the next one. But I want to talk about the nightmare process, the renovations. Now I'm going to be honest with you. This is where it gets really messy. You see, I thought that I'd need just $30,000 for renovations, but no, it ended up being closer to $90,000 just for the unit that I was living in. There were cockroaches, structural issues, and just a lot of stuff that I didn't see coming. It took me a full year from when I purchased the duplex to when I finally moved into one of the units. And during that time, I was still living at my girlfriend's mom's place, funneling every spare dollar I made into fixing up the property. And here's what I learned. 1, always over budget for renovations. Whatever you think it's going to cost, you're wrong. Double it. 2, get multiple quotes. One contractor quoted me for $50,000 for foundation work, but I ended up getting it done for under $7,500 after shopping around. And then 3, I'd focus on functionality. Don't worry about making everything look perfect right away. Start with what's necessary. And so finally, after what felt like an eternity, I was able to move in. And it was one of the most satisfying moments of my entire journey, knowing that I was no longer paying rent and that I had made an investment for my future. Now, here's the thing. If I could do all of this on a $50,000 salary, so can you. You don't need to have a huge income. You just need to be smart with your money and focus on the long game. Here's what I'd recommend. 1, cut your biggest housing expense if possible. I'd say move in with family or find a super affordable rental, get more roommates. It'll speed up your savings. 2 is automate your savings. Set up automated transfers into accounts so you don't even have to think about it. 3, start side hustles, whether it's YouTube, freelancing, selling things online. Find a way to generate extra income. And then 4th, don't rush into the house. Get a great inspector, take your time, and make sure you're getting the right property for your goals. Now, at the time, people were telling me this was a terrible idea, that housing prices were the highest that they've ever been and were poised for a crash. But I blocked out all of the noise. I pushed forward, and my investment has nearly doubled in value in less than 4 years. And it set me up to purchase my next property under the same circumstances. Now, it wasn't easy. There were definitely challenges, but looking back, this is one of the best decisions that I've ever made. And if you're thinking about buying your first home, start saving, get creative with your income, don't rush the process. If you want to see all of the struggles that I ran into, I'm going to have to ask you to check out this video here. It offers a glimpse into one of the hardest times of my life. Thanks for checking out this video and have a great day.